Hello, everybody. I wanted to make a video real quick because the AP Top 25 has come out, and so I thought I'd give my thoughts and reactions to it as we move towards the new week and the new set of games coming up this Saturday. Some things that I see, obviously, that stand out is like you got Oregon jumping to number 2 and then Penn State dropping down to 7. I think because of how high Penn State was ranked, it's not like they were going to drop out of the top 10 completely. If the score stayed the same before they went to overtime, maybe. Like if it was just a 14-3 game, 21-10 kind of game, I could see maybe Penn State drops out of the top 10 altogether. But because they were able to fight back, get into the game, go to a double OT, I think that's why, they probably favored to keep them within the top 10. But I mean, it's the importance of scheduling, why scheduling matters. Even though Oregon blew out Oklahoma State 2 or 3 weeks prior, I think that's a better game to get you more ready versus who Penn State has played to start the season. How many D1 schools have they played? You see what I mean? So there's that. Miami being the 3 team, this makes sense. They've so far, Oregon and Miami have been, and Oklahoma have been some of the most impressive games. Ole Miss does have a big win under their belt, beating LSU, which is why LSU dropped down, and then all the way to 13. But then they get to shoot up to number 4. So Ole Miss, Miami does have the Notre Dame win, so I can see them being at number 3. Which if Florida didn't start so slow this season, it'd give even more of a reason to have Miami up this high because there had been so much more credibility to the Florida win. I think Florida still has a lot to prove because if Florida can beat Texas and Georgia and beat some of the teams that are ahead of them, even with how slow they started and how many wins they have up until this point, if they get back to a 500 record, they're definitely going to be back in the top 25. Texas A&M beating Auburn, that makes sense. Indiana taking care of business, being 5-0, makes sense that they're in the top 10. Ohio State, I'm genuinely, it did have trap game written all over it against Washington for them to drop a little bit, but considering how they handled the Huskies, I think it's safe to put them at 1 and keep them at 1 right now, even though not a lot of people would agree with that. I mean, they beat Texas, and this past game going to Washington, I think because Washington up until that point as well, if you looked at their schedule and how many undefeated teams have gone in there and lost, the home record, I think it had all the makings of, okay, our freshman quarterback's going to come in here, lay an egg. But because he didn't, I mean, I agree with this pick, and we have the makings of potential Big Ten showdown. We'll just see. As we scroll down here a little bit, I think Alabama should be ranked higher. I would definitely probably have Alabama ahead of Texas, Indiana, and Penn State. That's me personally, and the reason why is who they played and how they handled Georgia. Little bit of context though. Some things to kind of clean up, and hopefully it doesn't bite them in the ass in this Vanderbilt game. They got to figure out something in the second half. They scored this many points in the second half. So I do think Bama is a top 10 team. I know a lot of people wrote them off after the Florida State loss, which was, a lot of reason too. But after being able to handle their business against Georgia, yeah, they definitely deserve to be a top 10 team. Texas Tech sitting here. I don't know who they played last week. Yeah, they've been sitting idle for a little bit because they haven't played Houston. They haven't played Houston yet. Georgia, I think Georgia could get back in this thing. Georgia at 12, I think Georgia could get back into this thing. They string together a couple more wins because look who they got. They beat this Ole Miss team here. They take care of business, win 3 straight in a row. They can get back into this thing, and this is before even playing Texas, and that's a home game, and it's going to be a lot to expect out of Arch Manning after running through the gauntlet of the SEC teams Texas has to then show up here in November and hey, you beat us, because hey, the only quarterback this season that's been able to do it is Simpson. So moving right along here, I think LSU dropped a long ways. I think they really did. I think LSU is still a top 10 team. And so then would it leave Indiana? Who could they replace? Indiana, Texas, Penn State, maybe? Like, it just depends. But they dropped, dropping 9 spots. And it's not like it was a blowout either. Like, it was a pretty close loss. Iowa State and Vandy. No. Vandy's right here. Tennessee, I can see that they're not moving too much. They're kind of staying idle. Probably just because of the overtime win and the fashion of how they won. And they've been playing 5 straight games. And so they finally got their bye week. So it makes sense that they sat idle. I think Iowa State is going to be a sneaky team where we're probably going to be talking about them a lot more, kind of like how everybody's talking about Oregon and Miami, where I think the Big 12 championship could potentially be Texas Tech and Iowa State, just depending on how it is and how it plays out. Vandy at 16. This has all the makings of, can Vandy do what Georgia almost did last year with their ferocious comeback, or what Manziel did a couple years ago, where they go into Tuscaloosa? Can Diego Pavia be that guy? If Vandy wins this game and Bama drops the next one, then that shows a lot more about Georgia and where Georgia's at. But I think Vandy wins this game. Bama probably maybe drops 1 or 2. Pavia and the Commodores would jump all the way up here. There'd be no debate. Like, Vandy going into Tuscaloosa, beating them in Tuscaloosa as the underdog team. It doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Not everybody can go into Tuscaloosa and win. Georgia Tech, I think, is properly ranked. Florida State, after losing last week, yeah, it makes sense that they drop a little bit. Missouri's been quiet. A lot of people have been talking about how Bo was probably the better quarterback pick out of him and Drew Aller, but again, only time will tell. And the final, this is kind of interesting. How Virginia's ranked, but they're not ranked above the team that they just beat. I think people are still holding on out of one of these wins, the Alabama win, obviously. That's probably why they're keeping them so high. But, it does make sense, because what if Virginia turns right back around? Who do they play? Okay, they got to play Louisville. What if they turn right back around, and after having a huge monster win for a program to, get them going in the right direction, where they could run the table in the ACC, what if they drop this one at Louisville? Because this has upset written all over it. And then, maybe, who knows? Illinois, see Illinois right here. Then BYU. BYU's had a quiet 4-0 year. Illinois getting that huge win over SC. Now, didn't they blow a lead in that too? So that would be cause for concern too, because Illinois could find themselves like all these teams from Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is the line, just because sitting at 2-2, where if these teams drop one, they're probably not going to be ranked for a very long time until we play another 3 or 4 weeks, because a 4-2 Arizona State team or a 4-2 Virginia team, they're not going to get in over, a 5-1 Georgia Tech team. After Vanderbilt, potentially, if they do lose this Saturday, it's harder to rank and consider Virginia on the same level as Vanderbilt, if we're talking losses and stuff. Plus, it'd be their second loss. And we know why Notre Dame's ranked still. It's not because, it's Notre Dame. No, it's go look at who they played. They played 2 ranked teams, and both of them were a loss by field goal and a walk-off touchdown. So point margin was 4 points. You lose 2 games in the span of 4 points. Like, not very many other teams up on this list. Texas, Bama, Georgia, the ones with the 1 loss. Not very many of them can say, yeah, we only lost by 4 points. Look at Bama. When Bama lost to Florida State, what's that score say? Oh, you can't see it all the way, but it says 31-17. That's not a 4-point loss. That's a pretty big L, and everybody overreacted to it. But anyways, that's just my thoughts on this. I think the rankings are pretty correct. Oregon being at the 2, Miami at the 3, giving some love to Ole Miss before they have to run the table a little bit, because look at who they got coming up. Got to go to Georgia. Got to go to Oklahoma. These aren't just easy throwaway games. These are going to be tough games. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that, guys. I'll see you in the next video.